is a god. Guys, we all grew up, at least guys 30, 40, reading about Woz and Jobs and Gates and out there guys, and he's helped to sign all people, and he's the man they look up to. Of course, his biggest claim to fame, he's a double Ph.D., Dr. Ted Nelson. And his biggest claim to fame of many is the book Computer Liberation, Computer Lib New Machines, which is sort of a philosophical Bible of you can and must understand computers now. Back in 1974, when computers were for the man, not us. He helped change that. He coined the term hypertext, and a lot of, early pioneer of what became the web and everything else. I can't possibly do it justice. Ted Nelson.
Well, my prepared talk is in a lot of trouble here because it all relies on being able to see what almost none of you can see, and being able to put on the screen what I had prepared, and it seems to be being truncated in strange ways. Okay, I'll go to my prepared script and see what So, thank you, Evan. Thank you for setting up this wonderful conference with these great people. And we're running on fumes here a little bit, but at the same time, the spirit of the group is fabulous. I want to thank a special thanks to my deceased wife, Marlene Malico, who worked so hard to keep his work going for 23 years, and to my fiancée, Lauren Sarno, who has picked up where Marlene left off and is continuing to waft me. One of my slogans is everything is deeply intertwined, meaning intertwined and intermingled, and that unpacks to there's too much to say and it goes in all directions. And the technical world has been based upon the Aristotelian notion of hierarchy, that everything is a hierarchy. And unfortunately, this is not true because there are many interconnections. And I see the interconnections, and the hierarchy is finds it very hard to map interconnections. And my Greek philosopher is not Aristotle, but Heraclitus, who said, you can't step in the same river twice. Everything is interconnected. I didn't know that before, but I found him as my ancient Greek justification. So, unfortunately, the fundamental concepts I'm trying to give you are visual, and I bet you hardly half the people here can see what I'm trying to do. Nevertheless, I'll try. So I've lowered onto the lower screen, this is the lower screen, a picture, and suddenly it got screwed up. All right, now something happened to it. And it disappeared there. All right, we'll try it another way. Okay. So this is the original hypertext concept. Now nobody can see it. It had two parts. Pages with visible connections between the pages and jump links. And as hypertext has gotten simplified for the masses, it's just jump links. And I'm trying to do the other part, which I consider more important. And I will now show you a number of things which most of you won't be able to see. But that will be but if you go to my page, Xanadu.com, where is it? No. Man, oh man, oh man. This is tough. So here we are. And this shouldn't be down there at all. That's my script, which is supposed to be for me to see. And I'm trying to, the things I want you to see, I can't show you. All right. So here's the Project Xanadu page, just so you'll know. And to get to the page, which most of you will not be able to see, you just click on where it says, God, jeepers. Sorry, staying calm in this situation is very difficult. If you click on this where it says parallel pages visibly connected, since we're not connected, I can't jump to that page, but I happen to have it cached if we can get to it. I'm not trying. We've got enough things that are going wrong. Yeah. So if we go to that page, no, it seems to have closed. Fortunately, let's see. I think I remember the name of it, and we'll try to reopen it on the Finder. I have never quite had to deal with. The only time it's been was in worse was one time in Belgium, where there was an audience of about 40 people in bright sunlight and no projector. So I had them file past the computer. And we might get to that stage. Here we are. Okay. So here is the page you would get to from Xanadu.com showing the various forms, various visualizations of parallel pages and visibly connected. So here, for example, this shot was of a young lady. I published this in 1972. It shows a young lady sitting at an office computer and the visible lines of connection between two pages on the screen, between two windows on the screen. Now, how did I do this in 1972 when there were no office computers? Answer, that's a Selectric typewriter and a fake plastic mock-up. And here's another picture, again, showing the connection, the visible connection between windows and pages. So this was a proposal both for documents and for the nature of windows. This was before the Xerox PARC windowing system came out or was implemented in 1974, which has taken over the world in the form of the Macintosh and later Microsoft Windows. So I'm proposing a different literary format in which we generalize ordinary writing to parallel texts. I call this transparallel, but I just came across a word which has some acceptance. What is it? I'm trying to remember. Parallel. Anyway, so this generalizes the Hebrew Talmud, marginal glosses from the Middle Ages, all kinds of things where we want to be able to see the connections between ideas and writings on the screen. But nobody does this. Why not? Well, let's take the origin of the canonical format of computer documents, which is Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word began at Xerox PARC as Project Bravo, with the highest of intentions, where Chuck Simone wanted to give you access to fonts and allow you to print out pretty fonts on your paper. That's all very nice. I love fonts. I designed a font in college. So, but Microsoft Word is just one long column. And that, he took Project Bravo, when Xerox didn't want to finance it, he took Project Bravo to Microsoft and it became Microsoft Word. And at first it was a very nice, neat system for putting fonts on paper, and that was what it did. And now, of course, it has grown into a swamp of incomprehensible interfaces that no one, because this is the principle of every piece of software, if it is successful, becoming a swamp which wants to pull you down, quicksand to hold you in. And so we have these competing worlds of quicksand that we call modern software. Okay, so here's the alternative, which these are various instantiations. I've been trapped, since the web, I've been trapped in document, in prototype hell. See, I feel toward the World Wide Web the way Adam might have felt toward Cain. The sun that destroyed the other sun. And the sun that was destroyed was parallel pages visibly connected, which was part of the original hypertext design of 1960. And in 1967, I made the first mistake that created the World Wide. I see the World Wide Web as having been created by two mistakes I made. Tim Berners-Lee is a very nice guy. I like him a lot, but he's been elevated to godlike status as if he thought of all of this. Whereas what in fact he did was he took the prevailing notion of hypertext, which by that time had been dumbed down to jump links. a project at Brown University in 1966, 67, 68, which was a very nasty project because the guy who ran it was very abusive and insulting, and basically I reduced it essentially to jump links in order to get something out the door, and that is what the notion of hypertext has become. Just jump links into the unknown, what other people call hyperlinks. And so you click on something, you don't know where you're going. Whereas the notion of seeing visible connections for links, that was swept aside. I can't hear you. Okay. So, okay, so the point is that going back to my original script, if I can find it, it's up here somewhere. All right. So here are the demos. This was a demo of the Xanadu interface from 1999 when we went open source. It shows the Declaration of Independence draft 1 on the left, the final draft of the Declaration of Independence on the right. Now, when Jefferson wrote it, he used much heavier phrases, and he did a beautiful rewrite. The gray areas are the ones that were changed. The colored areas, which are connected by colored lines of the same color, show which parts were retained identically. And if we had time and a decent way of looking at it, I could show you this interactively. The next one is something I did with Ian Heath at the University of Southampton in 2003 called Cosmic Book, which shows in Microsoft Windows visible connections between different pages. Ian had to redo the whole windowing system so that a transparent sheet overlaid the entire window, the entire screen. And on this, he created new windows and the interconnected lines. And don't worry, I've fallen off the stage before. It won't happen. Thank you for that thought. So anyway, here is the next one, Xanadu Space, which is our nicest one, and I will give you a live demo now. This is running in Windows, which I'm running on a Macintosh. And here we have a Xanadu document in 3 dimensions with 9 source pages in the back and two pages in the front. The one on the left is the main document, and we can step through very successive connections. I'll go back up to the top. I've always said that every quotation should be connected to its origin. So in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and what is that from? I know, I can't help it. What the hell do I do? Okay. And so in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and that's connected. You can see this on YouTube if you go to the Xanadu Space demo on YouTube. Beginning and my YouTube channel is the Ted Nelson with no spaces, and there's a lot of stuff on there. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and that is directly connected from the document. And here we go again to the central document we're focusing on, and we see its source. Adam and Lilith began to fight, and that is from the alphabet of Ben Sira. So in this lovely 3-dimensional visualization, which most of you can't see, we're able to see the successive pages swarfing up. Swarfing means swooping and morphing to interconnection with the other source. Hoping somehow to get that working in some form. The programmer was overcome by difficulty in this version. I don't want them here right now. Oh, for God's sake, you're right. Sorry. I'm looking at it and you weren't. Let's start over. Thank you very much. When you said you didn't see it, I thought you meant because of where you were sitting. Okay. Sorry. I mean, these are circumstances which I've never dealt with before. Okay, so starting again. Here at the top, here at the top is the original quotation. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and that is from the alphabet of Ben Sira. Pardon me, from the King James Bible. Adam and Lilith began to fight. It's down here. And that is from the alphabet of James Sira. And as we go through these successive quotations and connections, the appropriately connected and quoted pages swoop up to match. So that's the best interface we've done. Unfortunately, the programmer became overwhelmed. This was programmed in a combination of C++, Python, Zigzag, and Zoggle, and which created a morass which could not be further fixed. I've had two wonderful kids in Connecticut have been trying to translate this and make it work again for the last 4 years. And basically I've said we have to start over. It's a locked Windows demo. You can't even change the document. So these are some of the demos we have, but what is the concept? And the concept is very simple. It's this. The original hypertext design, which is visible bridge links between pages and jump links. So conventional hypertext and the web just took this part, the jump links, and the rest is left out. Why? Well, it's very hard to do. See, they use XML, or pardon me, HTML, which is based on embedded links, and that's where it all goes wrong. Embedded links are the work of the devil. So the Xanadu method is entirely different. It has many consequences. You distribute a document as a list of content pieces and a list of links to apply to them. So the client software brings in the content, assembles it according to the links, and then you get your overall document. And this has not only the original intent of allowing you to get visible bridge links between pages, but it has a number of other powerful consequences, specifically that you can anthologize easily, and that you can have that you can actually charge. Now, I've had long arguments with Tim Berners-Lee in Tokyo. He insisted that there be no charging mechanism. And I said, what are you going to do about the people who want to be paid? What about the publishing industry? Let's put something in place that's fair to all parties. And with the Xanadu method, you can have a mixture. You can mix free and paid content. The paid content, we're now setting up a royalty server where you can put content on that will be sold by the character, denominated in nanobucks, so that you can have extremely small payments that are extremely fair. And we're hoping this will do something to rescue the academic journals, which are in great trouble financially. See, the wonderful notion that everything is going to be free. Yeah, excuse me, I want free breakfast. I want a free place to live. No, everything can't be free. And the publishing people have to be satisfied, as well as the artists and writers who would like a little something for their work. Thank you very much. So that the Xanadu method of distribution, which is by a list, and by the way, it's from lack of time. I have not published a new standard. We have a standard data structure, a standard distribution structure, a standard link structure, which I hope will be is semi-final, and I'll publish them as soon as I have time to sit at the computer and do that. The current instantiation, every Xanadu instantiation gets a different name. The current one is called Xanadu Camelot because it was designed in Cambridge, England, and it's a lot of work. So that will have royalty. That will allow you to put that. We start over. One of our domains is royalty.pub. The .pub TLD was created for bars and nightclubs, but yeah, it works for us. So royalty.pub is one of our domains, and that's where you'll be able to put content if you want to sell it by the byte, by the character or by the video frame. The client will assemble these and show them. Anybody can build a Xanadu client. Anybody can build a Xanadu server. This is not proprietary. Pardon me. Our code is proprietary, but if you want to build your own, feel free. One of the reasons it's proprietary is I don't want forking. See, I consider the World Wide Web to be a fork of the Xanadu project. And if you know something about in the open source world, the GNU public license is held up as the license for free software. In fact, Richard Stallman himself, the creator of the GNU license, requires a different license for the GCC compiler in order to prevent forking. And so that, which is maintained by Evan Muglin of the Free Software Foundation. So it's all a morass of much greater complexity. But as I say, our software is you can imitate it any way you like. But meanwhile, we're trying to get a version of it that we can distribute. Alas, we're going to do it in the browser. I hate the browser very much, and but it does have advanced capabilities in a number of sorts. And in order to be seen by Google, it has to have a web presence. So we're compromising with that in a number of ways. I'm way off my written script, so let me see what I wanted to say before that. My original intention, you see, Chuck Simone with Microsoft Word said, they said at Xerox PARC in 1974, how do we imitate paper? And when I derided this in front of Bob Taylor, who headed Xerox PARC, he said smugly, well, paper has a wide acceptance. And I said, excuse me, but if we're going to have interactive pages, interactive screens, why can't we go beyond that? Why can't we do things that are beyond paper? And my answer is to extend the document sideways with visible connections so that we can show the connections and show the interrelationships explicitly rather than just with diving boards into the unknown with the so-called web links. Where are we? 10 a.m. Okay, so I've got a lot more I can tell you, and feel free to walk out when the thing opens. But Evan said that in return for coming down here, I can talk as long as I like. When I usually ask how long can I talk, they say, well, as long as you like, within reason. And I say, which is it? So, how did I get into this mess? When I got out of college, it wasn't clear what I was going to do. I was a media guy. I was good at writing and photography and stagecraft and magazine layout. Oh, so one of my great achievements, I think this is, looking back, this was the defining moment of my life. It was in here. Son of a bitch. Well, damn. It was here when I left the farm, and I hope I haven't lost it. Yes. Okay, thanks. I'll conjure up a page out of the depths of the computer. Okay. So this was a magazine I created when I was 19. It was kite-shaped in 2 colors, and you flip the pages. And looking back, it was a media innovation of an unusual sort. And so media innovation was what I was about. But just before I graduated, I found my true calling, which is filmmaking. I shot a low-budget comedy film, which you can see on YouTube. I'm very proud of it. Now, it has the great efficiency that it's very badly synced, but let me explain. We had a $700 budget, which was a lot of money for a student project, and $700 in 1959 would buy you 1 hour of black and white film and a work print. So that I was able to get a half-hour comedy out of that works, and sync the film later was an achievement as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I'm very proud of that movie, and as far as I'm concerned, I can make movies, and wish I were making movies instead of this other stuff. So what do you do when you can't decide what you're going to do? Well, you go to graduate school, and that's when I took the computer course, and I saw that you could put screens on those things, interactive screens. Nobody saw the consequences. I was a media guy. I was a movie maker. Interactive screens. I can do that. So I said, what documents in the future can be done with interactive screens? That up to Okay, so I brought this 3,000 miles to show you, and now it's lost. Okay, so designing the documents in the future for the interactive screen. Now, throughout the 60s, I was talking to people about interactive screens. Nobody could imagine an interactive screen. My great-grandfather was a science teacher, very smart man. He couldn't imagine what I was talking about. No one I met could imagine it. But I became, in those excited moments, a millenarian. In the excited moments of 1960, I believed the great millennium of happiness, well-being, and education would come through computer screens, and what we could do with it. So I planned in 1961 at Harvard. I was going to have a computer company that was called General Creative. And it would bring computers to the masses and make them easy with an artsy, humanistic, corporate style. In other words, I imagined a company that later came into existence with the name Apple. And I intended to be a designer, tycoon, figurehead. In other words, I invented Steve Jobs, or the Steve Jobs image, but I didn't get to be him. The actual Steve Jobs was 5 years old at the time. So I was determined to do my future writings using software I would design myself after I created the personal computer world and worldwide hypertext. I was not modest, I was very confident, and I'm sure I could do it because of all the things I've done before. So all my other projects went on hold. I just kept notes, figuring that when I got rich enough, I could pay to have all that digitized. There's never been any other plan, and now I'm stuck with perhaps 1 million notes, certainly 500,000, that I can never possibly review. All my plans involve being younger. Next year I will be 80 years old, but if Rupert Murdoch can go on working his mischief from a wheelchair, so can I. The computer world we have right now is not how it has to be. Just because we've gotten to this point of monopoly and morass doesn't mean it can't be changed. My great friend Douglas Engelbart, and when I say great, he was truly a great man. Doug was the greatest idealist I've ever known. His vision, which most people don't understand, was about making individuals and teams smarter and better with services that truly enhance creativity, productivity, and collaboration, rather than, as my friend Douglas Adams wrote, the sense of satisfaction you get from getting to work at all. There is nothing like Doug's vision even today, and I believe that there's still great possibilities in the world beyond, and that's why I do what I do. So what were my designs? Let's talk about constructs. It was obvious to me from the beginning that the computer world is constructs. People talk about HCI, human-computer interaction, one of the fields I believe I founded. Human-computer interaction, excuse me, the computer has no nature. We're talking about human construct interaction. We're talking about how people interact with those constructs that we impose on the computer. Kids think the computer world sprang from the brow of Zeus. Every bit of it was invented. Very few people get credit for what people think weren't invented. For example, nobody gives Larry Tesler credit for the terms cut, copy, and paste. I'm extremely angry about that because cut and paste really meant something when I was young. But cutting up a manuscript and rearranging its parts, and you don't have a tool yet that allows you to do that. Partly because Larry Tesler changed the meaning of those holy words. My friend Mark Miller created the Miller column. Now, what is a Miller column? By Jove. Let's see, I'll just go to downloads here. Well, we'll look for appropriate. So these are Miller columns, and in fact, Apple gives credit to my friend Mark Miller for having invented them. And the one invention of mine that everybody uses every day, I don't get credit for, is the back button. I invented that at Brown University in 1966 or 67, and the programmer said, well, no, users will never understand that. And I said, trust me. So, so the construct I stuck with was connected windows and pages side by side. And that we don't have yet in any form, in any useful document. But once again, the summary picture, where is that? Yeah, so here is that summary picture, which I haven't put on the web yet. I announced hypertext to the world in 1965. There's a recent memorandum. I think it's on my homepage at hyperland.com. An audio reminiscence, or no, a text reminiscence. And I gave a number of papers on hypertext in 1965. I was amazed. Every paper I submitted to every conference was accepted. And there's widespread interest for a little while, but I had no money and no university affiliation, and I was very ignorant of university ways, of government ways, and of business. All I knew was how the software should work. And in 1966, I was involved with a project at Brown University. I actually wrote to the President Brown and the President of the ACM complaining about the way I had been treated in that project, but of course, that got polite letters back. And that's where I overemphasized the jump link and we got hypertext in its present form. That's how it all got dumbed down. So let's jump ahead to 1979. I'll get back to personal computing. So my team and I, in 1979, designed the internals of how the Xanadu project should work. And 5 brilliant guys, and they came up with an astounding system of addressing called tumbler space. If you look up tumblers on Wikipedia, they give a brief description, but it's better described in my book, Literary Machine. So tumblers was a way of addressing all the nodes that would be in the Xanadu network, and everyone had a number, and the numbers had a number of fabulous arithmetic properties, so that spans of text, spans of links, spans of documents, spans of servers could all be addressed by a common numerical method. And that system is now referred to as Xanadu Green, and Roger Gregory is still working, trying to get that working. Meanwhile, Tim Berners-Lee, and I think this is his great accomplishment, created the URL. Now you see, URLs united the operating systems of Berkeley Unix, of all the different Unix systems on the net, Macintosh, PC, and all the servers could be united by this strange method where space became represented %20 and so on. And this strange mechanism allowed all these different servers to have a common addressing scheme. And that, I think, is Tim's greatest achievement, because hypertext would have jumped out of that. I mean, jump link hypertext is automatically created by that, because as soon as you have that, then you can give a universally accessible address to every document. So he didn't need to create HTML. But at any rate, that doesn't work with Xanadu Green. So the new Xanadu Purple refers to the data structure, is to explicitly to work within the URL addressing scheme, and that's what we're working with now. Although we hope to get. So then in 1988, oh, that was the falling noise. That was the falling noise. All right. Thank you. So in any case, is that any better? I don't know. My nose. Well, the ear might work. I mean, that's where they put. Yeah, okay. So, and we got millions of dollars from Autodesk, but I was not in charge of development. Roger was in charge of development, and unfortunately the programmers complained about him, and without asking Roger's side, I went to the head of Autodesk and had Roger demoted. That was the greatest mistake of my life. Because the group then started redesigning the whole thing, threw out Xanadu Green, created a new addressing scheme based upon Eric Drexler's system called the int, which is a very intricate data object which retains back versions as well as current versions, and went on for 4 years and didn't deliver. So, meanwhile, let's see. Back to personal computing. I didn't get on any of the bandwagons. Microsoft, Bill Gates tried to get me into Microsoft several times. I was too naive to notice, because to me, I was so appalled by Microsoft that I had no interest. But you know, he made me chairman. He gave me a keynote at one of his conferences, where I had dinner with him and Ellen Kay and Chuck Simone and so forth. But the idea of actually going into this pit of Microsoft was so appalling. if I had realized, if I had organizational smarts, if I could stand to be in a corporation, I could have gone in and created a skunkwork project and done Xanadu there, but that's not my stuff. I'm reminded of a very interesting guy named Art Fry. Art Fry gave us the sticky note. But he did it all within 3M. He was a corporate guy, so for years he told everybody about how great it was going to be, and he developed inside 3M a very special adhesive that didn't gunk up and could be restuck a number of times. And then the sticky note was brought out by 3M, and he's a 3M fellow. He just wanted to be a corporate person, whereas, you know, like most Americans, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And it's a very, I can't understand an Art Fry, but that's what it would have taken to do it inside Microsoft. I couldn't get on the Apple bandwagon because, of course, no way I would have gotten along with Steve Jobs. Nor could I have gotten along with Jeff Raskin, the Apple design guru. We had many points of agreement, although the only time I talked to him on the phone, he tried to start a fight. And then came along the Macintosh bandwagon, where they rolled out Windows from the Xerox PARC Windows, and that was the great new step. And for a while I liked it until I realized you can't change the interface, you can't have visible connections between Windows and between Windows. Now, Alan Kay tells me that back at Xerox PARC in the original 1974 version, you could have had visible interconnection between Windows, but nobody was interested in that. Anyway, so I wasn't interested. So I didn't get on in any of those bandwagons. And on the web bandwagon, well, I wasn't interested in that because you couldn't do visible pages visibly connected on that either. So the first, and as I said, the web was created by two mistakes I made. One was dumbing down the hypertext to the one-way concept, and the other was, the other was, no, not that one. Right, yeah, I'm sorry, when I say not that one, I was opening up a thingy here. Everything was all set up, but we had a projector problem. But that's how it goes. Yeah, so here's Tim Berners-Lee's proposal. Let's see, okay. So I have to make it, oh, there's no way we can see it all. All right. So here's his 1989 proposal. Now, mind you, we demoted Roger Gregory in 1988, and here's the proposal for the World Wide Web in 1989. And he says, there are very few projects which take Ted Nelson's idea of a wide docuverse literally, by allowing links between nodes in different databases. So that was his notion of docuverse and hypertext. So we had that window of 1988 where Xanadu could have been the worldwide system, I think. No, it might not have been because it was much harder to explain than the web. But there's no knowing. So that's history as I see it. To the web created by two mistakes I made. So the real problem is the mind wrench of understanding what we're doing. That you're distributing a document as a list of contents, and the links are separate. And that means that it's much more free form, but that anything can be quoted freely. Now, this is what the Creative Commons guys, this is what Larry Lessig wanted to do with Creative Commons, but what else did Creative Commons do? Creative Commons is a very nice way of saying to people, give up any hope of being paid. Just give it to the world, but either you want credit, blah, blah, blah. And to me, it's a fake. You're saying, why not have a system where everybody can be freely quoted and be paid? And in the Xanadu system, anybody can be freely quoted in any extent because the content is going to be paid for by the user when that part is downloaded. Okay? But you need a different copyright arrangement for that. No copyright arrangement will work except the one I propose, which is called trans-copyright. In the if you put a thing under trans-copyright, it says anyone may freely use this content in any amount, in any new context, provided that that it's distributed only as a listing, and each user downloads it from the server of my choice. And the client retains an umbilical connection to its original source address so that the user can instantly go to the original source and see more, and see whether it's misquoted or read more if he likes that. So that's the trans-copyright permission, and it's compatible with Creative Commons because Larry, or rather the present people running Creative Commons will now allow something called CC+, which means you can put it under a license, which you could have anyway, but so you can put it under Creative Commons and the whatever you like, whatever else you like. Well, people have had the damnedest misunderstanding about Xanadu. Lots of people thought it would require special hardware. No, you just want a good screen, and which didn't exist when I started talking about it. The developer of a major outline processor, I forget which one, thought it was an outline processor. Some people thought it required Earth satellites. Now, Bill Lowe of IBM, here's a very interesting quotation, because he's a very nice guy. He's got something on YouTube which seems to give me credit for inspiring the IBM PC. I won't make any such claim. But I gave a presentation. He had me give a presentation at IBM around '78, and I had a series of slides where I wore an ape mask. Right? You remember the ape sequence in 2001, where you hear the thus spake Zarathustra music, da, da, and the apes suddenly get intelligent and walk toward this slab. So I had a rubber ape mask, and I was walking toward this black object with a screen that said Xanadu, which is, of course, I intended as a proprietary system at that time. And it was about a 15-minute presentation, but here's Bill Lowe's description of it afterwards. When I engaged Ted Nelson to speak at this IBM management group meeting, he was a young guy and he didn't wear a tie. This was almost anathema to the buttoned-up IBM managers who were attending this meeting. He put up a 2-hour presentation together for this dinner. I think it was 15 minutes. I have to say it was very amateurish compared to what we were used to, but the message was powerful. He had created images which he projected onto the wall with a slide projector. They showed him accessing information from the middle of the jungle, on a sandy beach and from other remote locations. He called this process Xanadu. His whole message that evening was that communication and computer technology was moving in the direction of making all information available to all people, no matter who they were, or when, where, or how they wanted it. This is a concept that seems fairly simplistic in today's world of wireless communication and the web with BlackBerries and iPhones everywhere. But 30 years ago, it was revolutionary thinking. Not only was I intrigued with his message and with the vision of where it would take us, but it was a defining moment for me. It helped shape a new perspective about a new information age, and I began to be able to communicate its power to those at IBM who had remained thus far unconvinced and resistant change. That's very stirring. Okay, so who else? What other ideas were there? What Xanadu was? Calvin Moore's and Claude Kagan. Now, I don't know who here knew Claude Kagan. Wonderful. Yes. Well, Claude Kagan was a very inspirational guy. Created the Resistors Computer Club, of which my fiance was a member, and also inspired a lot of people. He just turned them loose on computers, and it was a wonderful. The Resistors were a wonderful group. Go back to 1965. I've just given not my first presentation, but my big presentation of hypertext at the ACM. And I think most of the computer scientists in the world were in the room at the time, right? Like there were 300. And I got a big applause. Afterwards, a fellow named Calvin Moore, a very shy fellow, came up to me afterwards, and he told me about his system. And he thought Xanadu was his system, which was a nice little computer language called Track, which was for interactive text, and very good still, but very kind of irrelevant today. But Calvin, in our friendship, emphasized to me the importance of trademark, because it's a free form of intellectual property. You just put TM on a thing, and that gives you some rights to it. Well, some rights, provided you have to defend them. For example, I've been TMing Hypercoin all these years, thinking we were going to use the Hypercoin trademark, but I just looked on the web, and people are using it all over, and since I haven't defended it and haven't gotten out a product under that name, I've lost it. But it's a free first step you can take to defend an idea. So he TM'd it, and then he got a registered trademark for Track, the name of his language, and that was to him extremely important. So then Claude Kagan, that was in 1965. Claude Kagan, around 1972 or 3, hired me as a consultant to Western Electric because he wanted to publicize Track. He thought I would publicize it. And he had his own version of Track, and he handed me a brochure And there it said track, no TM, no mention of Calvin Moore's. And so I did my job at Western Electric. But I was in a pickle because I had two friends and I had to betray one of them. What would you do? Either I betrayed Calvin Moore, who had built his life on this one product and the trademark he had established for it, or Claude Kagan, who had put so much effort into a wonderful version of it that he had gotten working at Western Electric. Whom do I betray? Do I keep silent and betray Calvin? Or do I send him Claude's brochure without the TM and start a ruckus and lose Claude as a friend? Well, I sent the brochure to my earlier friend, Calvin Morris. And what did he do? He started a federal suit against Western Electric and Claude Kagan. Western settled. Why? Probably to avoid discovery. And Claude Kagan was told never again to work on track at Western Electric. And so he was very bitter about this, but there you go. Bitter toward me. In any case, that's the kind of quandaries that the world provides. So let's see. A few more words about the resistors. They were the high school friends I wish I'd had. I was 33 and Nat was 12, and we became the best of friends, and he introduced me to Lauren, who was 14. And next month, Nat, who is now 58, and a psychiatrist, and a Ph.D. in mathematics, who used to teach math at Harvard, but got tired of it. Nat, who invented, introduced Lauren to me, is going to marry us in Boston. And a number of the resistors will be there. So, that's it for my prepared remarks. I'm happy to sit here as long as anybody wants to dialogue. Hi. No, but I wrote to him. I also independently invented image synthesis. I'm trying to think of the word for passing a ray tracing, and I was trying to get backing for that, and I wanted to create Pixar also. That was in '61, and that was a back burner project. So I wrote to Kubrick about that. He sent back a note saying, "What did you do, Ted? What is it?" But I never had intended time to go further than that.
What did you think? I mean, you clearly had vision things that could be doing, and a lot of the things were in 2001, the computer screens that weren't really computer screens.
Well, actually,
we're talking about making a computer screen. What did you think at the time of the the text getting big, when there was problems with all the screens?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
No. Well, yeah, but
It's my favorite movie.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. I had nothing to object to. But when I saw that movie, I stayed up all night, because at that time, before CGI, I knew, as a high school kid, I knew how every visual effect had been done, including the great one when anybody see When Worlds Collide? My favorite picture as a kid. So Times Square is flooded. How did they do that? Well, they built a miniature Times Square of black wooden buildings, and then they flooded it. But they had to slow down speed up the camera to mimic the speed with which water would flow at that size. Then they flooded it, and they used traveling map to superimpose the waves over a real Times Square. So that's what I was into as a kid. And then when I saw 2001, I stayed up all night. How the hell did they do the effects? I wasn't interested in the slit scan, but how the hell did it was obvious how they did the jogging through the squirrel cage, but how did the robot throw the body and have it spin off into space? And the answer is, you had a turntable with the camera mounted on the turntable, the robot's on a turntable, and the man in wires in the suit, or the suit with wires, goes off into space and does not turn. Yeah. But it took me till 4 in the morning to figure that out. Anyway. Yes. Yeah.
Something that is started way back.
Yeah.
And as you were describing your list of pages, I started to think about the later versions of Word and Annotation.
Yeah.
In the book.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the closest
Yeah.
implementation I've ever seen to the zero side by
Yeah.
side.
Mm-hmm. There are a number of annotation schemes, and for example, on the Kindle, you can annotate. But each of these is limited to its own environment, and somebody is trying to working very hard on web annotation. But to me, annotation is just one case of parallel document, and so to generalize this to a much freer form is my objective. Thanks. Yeah. Oh, right. Well, yeah, okay, quick book plug. We do have, Geeks Bearing Gifts has been called the best computer history ever written by Brewster Kahle, founder of the Internet Archive, because instead of being one long avalanche of events, it takes every topic as a separate chapter. And that's available online. Lulu, if you go to my homepage, Hyperland, it's got links to lulu.com. My autobiography, Possiplex, which a lot of people like. Wendy Hall, a recent president of ACM, says it is a rip-roaring read. James Burke, the author of Connections. I read it in one non-stop surge because I couldn't put it down. Like its author, it's fascinating, brilliant, and crazy. The book will be a winner in Xanadu. I'll stop there. Thank you. And of course, I forgot to bring computer libs. We have reprinted this from the original negative. Thank you very much. And you can get those. Unfortunately, they're not cheap, but they're just like the original, except for the word replica. And finding a printer that would go from the original negatives was extremely difficult because most printers go from PDF. So get them while they're hot. And again, you can find that at my homepage. Okay. Well, my objective in writing the book was to get backing. And I thought backers would come through. I had this notion of an Easter Bunny backer who will sign checks for anything. An extremely naive notion because the backer wants to take over. But I didn't find that, and I thought I'd make enough money to back my stuff, but I was cheated by my distributors, and the 50,000 copies, I never saw the $1.50 I should have gotten for each one. So as far as I'm concerned, Computer Lib was a failure. That I inspired many people is nice, but that wasn't my intention. And the development of the computer revolution did not happen according to my scenario. Yes. Thank you. Yes. For the pet. Is that Laszlo Sneed? Yes. No, it was never implemented. Laszlo Sneed does not exist. Laszlo Sneed is one of my pseudonyms. and that description, I never thought it out further. It's obvious what you could do with it. The idea was it was an interactive game where you pull into a rest stop by the side of the road, and anything can happen. There might be a guy with a knife, and there might be sex. Who knows? So, but use your imagination. It was not implemented. And but I was embarrassed to use my own name there, so I attributed it to the Argentinian Laszlo Sneed. Thank you. I won't put that in my resume. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's a basic game design, and nobody's ever used it. Please feel free and just some credit. Wonderful. Why? But you could do it in a more general form rather than just for the Commodore PET, because there are not many of them out there now. Yes. Oh, Calvin Moores introduced me to John Mauchly, I believe, and I think from 1977 to 79, we had a number of very pleasant discussions. John Mauchly was co-creator of the ENIAC under military secrecy at the Moore School of Engineering at the University of Pennsylvania during the war. And when I met him, he was just the sweetest old duffer, and I was going to try to help him write an autobiography, and he would not stick to the subject. And I couldn't get it, and wonderful guy, a really nice friend, and I have, maybe 10 or 15 hours of tapes of our stuff, but so which could somehow be compiled by someone. And I talked to him the night before he died. He named some strange disease he had, and he said, "Oh well, I've got to go to the hospital now. My blood pressure's gone to 0." He said, and next morning he died. But I couldn't understand how this man could. Oh, here's a very important point. He said that you heard of the von Neumann machine. Okay, well the ENIAC had one memory for commands and one memory for data, and in fact, so did the first computer I ever saw. My grandfather and I walked through it at IBM headquarters on 57th Street in New York around 1949, and I don't remember the name of it. SSEC, so Selective Sequence Electronic Calculator. As the Mark I? I don't believe so. I believe the Mark I did not branch. All right. Well, since my ego is telling the story, it's as follows. My understanding is that the Mark I did not branch, and the notion of a branch came slowly, and it was such a shock to IBM that they made it the name of the computer, Selective Sequence Electronic Calculator, meaning we can branch. Now, actually, I believe that the ENIAC had branching too, but since that was the Moore School and not financed by IBM, but here was the point that I was getting to. Mauchly said, of course we thought of putting data and program in the same memory, but we were under military secrecy, so we couldn't publish it. Von Neumann comes along, asks us a lot of questions, and then he publishes the idea as if it's his own. And so it's called the von Neumann machine, where you have memory and where you have data and program in the same memory. So my understanding is that von Neumann took credit for a lot of things that you might not have. But, pardon? Yeah, that's academic, exactly so. Yeah, so finally, I didn't understand Mauchly's contribution. So I went to the memorial service, and here were all these kids. They were in their 60s, but they were kids. They were the sharpest bunch I ever saw. Ah, he inspired them. That was Mauchly. Yes.
myself and try to do
Could you say that more slowly, please? I didn't follow it. Very good. Yeah, when it gets down to these dates, it's really a squeaker, isn't it? Okay, and document. Thank you. Okay, thank you. There's so many answers to that. As Apple said in a press release when they criticized for using Foxconn labor, Apple cannot solve all the problems of the world, nor can I. I'm thinking particularly about documents, and by documents I include text, audio, and video. And that's enough for one guy. However, my answer to spreadsheet and database is different. If you look at Zigzag, well, I guess we could get into that. Why are spreadsheets rectangular? Consider, right, ledger books and paper printout. Consider, for example, the periodic table. It's not very rectangular, is it? It's got a lot of gaps. It gets wider, a lot wider at the bottom. Well, what is the appropriate way of holding all these things? My answer, and obviously there's no right answer, but a good answer is what I call hypertext structure, or pardon me, hypertext structure, which is crossword puzzles of information. So each cell can hold anything, but they're not necessarily in a rectangular configuration. And I reduce this to minimalistically to single cells which can be connected positively. Every cell can have a positive and negative connection, as in a spreadsheet or as in a crossword puzzle, but in more than two dimensions. In fact, in as many dimensions as you would like. These are not Euclidean dimensions. There is no surrounding space. It generates a structure. It generates arbitrary structures of great and peculiar qualities, and not in any sense whatever. You can implement relational database in it. I will not talk about relational. I'm talking about Zigzag, and I'm going to pull up a virtual. Oh, here we are. Right. So I'm going to pull this into the unsighted version just to quickly get it figured out. Get this demo up. Okay. Can't do that. Oh, here it is. Yeah, dealing with two screens is like fighting a two-ocean war. Okay, that's not it. Trying to find the top of this thing. Not the top of that. All right, I'll do it. One leg is shared just without the platform. Okay, here we go. So we'll just go. Here we are. We are now at a starting point in a hypertext structure, which I trademarked as Zigzag. I got a patent on this. Now the guys in Finland who were working on it took great umbrage and threw down their tools, and this development stopped in 2001. They wouldn't even discuss it. it seems to me that if IBM can get, if Microsoft and Apple can get software patents, individuals should be able to too. But that offends some people. Okay, so here we are. There's a blue cursor, there's a green cursor that goes around in the left-hand window, and a blue cursor that goes around in the right-hand window. I haven't done this in it's done in a long time, so well, I'm going to stumble slightly. So you'll notice that the blue cursor stays in the middle on the right, and the green cursor stays in the middle on the left. And the views are different because there are many things you may want to do that involve connecting things in different views. So in a spreadsheet, see, let's talk about the phrase WYSIWYG. Microsoft and Xerox went a long way on the phrase WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. What you get when? When you print it out. So the term the phrase WYSIWYG is a propaganda for the notion that that the computer is a paper simulator, and that everything that we're going to do on the screen has to match the paper. Pardon? The world is paper then. So, same for spreadsheets. So, we now are going to depart into a world impossible to put on paper, though of course you can do paper snapshots. So, anyway, so here we have these cells in an arbitrary space, and the two views are looking at the same 6 cells right now. And I can make a new cell, which just showed up in both windows. I can make new cells here. Oh yeah, I haven't done this in a while. So we can populate because this system was stopped. It's very hard to put content in the window, so I won't show you how that's done. But now we will jump to an actual, if this works, we're going to jump to an actual demo. I hope you can. Yes, cube. So here is some data. Royal families in Europe. Now you notice there's nothing rectangular about this, right? Jan Philip, Prince of Orange. They're in alphabetical order. And Adam Moore got them from some listing he got from Buckingham Palace, plus a few others he threw in. So we don't know about. So Ludwig. So you can see the difference between the two views. The view on the right, which is called the row view, emphasizes the symmetry, whereas the view on the left allows you to see the contents and the names, however long they may be. So that's why we have different views. Right now we have 4 different views. We can step through them in the right-hand window, and or you can step through them in the view. So, what does multidimensionality get you? Well, this you see, it's just a way of creating cells that keep track of things, and that's already an interesting database. But watch this. We go down to go up to Elizabeth, our ruling monarch currently in England. And Gal is a British citizen as well as an American. Elizabeth II, our reigning monarch. Now put both cursors on here. Now, I'm going to pivot in the left-hand window from dimension 1, to dimension date. Dimension 2, dimension 3, and dimension date. And Elizabeth was born in 1926. Yes, folks, that cell was lurking off in another dimension. Now, you can download this. If you go to xanadu.com/zigzag, you can download this and play with it all you want. It's a wonderful system. Alas, it's not a product. I'm still trapped in prototype hell. And because Xanadu is the main thing, I don't have time to work on this. But we should. So there it is. That is my answer to database and spreadsheet. Yeah.
World model.
No developer in the world is receptive to any new concept. People say, oh, you should show this genealogy to the Mormons. They've been doing software for 60 years, or, you know, they're locked. Yeah, well, I'd love that. Do I? How much time have I got? Very little. And you know, a good week is where I can get in 6 hours on my work, and that's usually writing. Yeah. So I want to thank you very much. It's been a wonderful group. Glad you all came.